my name is Alan Gross. I'm from the Leech Lake Band of Ojibwe. I've been living down here in Minneapolis since 1988. I really like making it to Cass Lake, but I don't make it there as often as I'd like to. But hopefully in the future, you know, maybe the Gitche Manitou will help me find a way back there. This Ojibwe project, when they gave us this piece of paper, they had some questions on here, and two of these questions really struck me as very relevant in today's world and today's topics. What we're talking about is what issues do you feel need to be brought out into the public forum for further discussion? One of those issues that I've been having a lot of discussions with, and a lot of people that come into this coffee shop, a lot of them are educators. A lot of them are out there in the community trying to help our students, trying to help our Indian students become better citizens, just better people in our community. And there's a lot of people out there trying to help. But what I really feel is one of the issues that I really feel is at the forefront is these darn public schools. You know, they turn around and they use credentialization against us all the time. You know, they'll be like saying, oh, you can't take these kids on a field trip because you don't have insurance. Well, that insurance, that's a form of credentials. You know, you can say, well, you can't teach these kids unless you got a bachelor's degree. That's a form of credentialization. That bachelor's degree is followed down that Western path of education. Western path of education isn't the bee's knees anymore. You know, there's actually professors at the University of Minnesota. They're busy trying to teach their professors that Western education isn't just the bee's knees anymore, and we need to have education from all cultures. But yet these public schools will sit there and say, oh no, oh no, oh no. We're the ones that are in charge. We're the ones that are going to teach your kids, and whatever else is your problem. And then you can turn around and say, well, what about all these disparities in education? What about all our kids that are all dropping out all the time? You know, maybe you guys aren't so good. That's one of the problems that I have. One of the major issues that needs to be brought forward is these schools using credentialization as a form of suppressing us. And suppression, same as oppression. Put it in the same context. They're trying to suppress our information, trying to keep our kids down that path, you know, and that path may be good for some people, but it's not good for everybody. And I've got so many good things to say about educated people. It might sound like a contradiction, but it's not. Those people work goddamn hard to get where they're at, but still at the same time, there's this other facet over here that's saying, hey, maybe our way ain't the best way, you know? So let's start getting into that. Let's have these policymakers and start opening their hearts and their minds and their souls so we can get these kids taught properly, you know? I mean, when they can say, I'm the one in charge, I'm the teacher, I'm the one with the education, I'm going to teach your kids. But then again, we got all these disparities, so it doesn't make any sense to me. That's a major issue with me. Question number that goes along and correlates with my second point. It says, what do you feel is the biggest threat today to your way of life and your way of thinking? The biggest threat to me is colonized thinking. And there's so many facets to colonized thinking. You can, on the one side, you can turn around and say, oh, I got this pipe over here, and I'm going to smoke it, but yet at the same time, I'm not going to worry about my neighbors. You know, Indians, Ojibwe kids, Lakota kids, all these Indian kids, they grow up naturally knowing that they need to be stewardship, but not just stewardship for land. We're talking stewardship for people too. You know, we grow up with humility and the need to protect our family, the need to be with our family. You know, for us, like that Western way of thinking never works. You know, when I was working in the private sector, like when it comes time for powwows and ceremonies and funerals, we were given 2 weeks off a year. You know, and you take a vacation, that's 1 week, and then you got a week for bereavement or whatever, you know. But to us Indians, especially to us Indians, and I can't speak to another culture, but to us Indians, if a second, fifth, 10th cousin dies, that's just as important to us as our first cousin. That's just as important to us as our uncle, or as our auntie, or as our grandma. It's just important to us, you know. So they can turn around and say, well, that's your 15th cousin. Well, we can't give you time off to do that, you know. And it's just not the way we think, you know. And they're busy trying to tell us how to think all the time. You know, we're born this way. We're born with stewardship. We're born with humility. We're born knowing the difference between good and bad. The only difference is that most of the time we get that goodness beat out of us. You know, we always get that goodness beat out of us by the constant pressures. You know, we get constant pressure we get pressure from up above with the authorities, you know, and we get pressures from the side, which is our peer groups, and we get pressures in the front, which is middle America, saying that you need to get a job, but hey, you can't look here. You know, and we always get pressure from behind too, from our family. You know, we always tell people. I remember hearing so many times in my life when I'm sitting there reading a book, from my own brother, from my own cousins, from my own people, from my own peers. They're always asking me, why is your nose in that book? What are you trying to be, white? That's a form of colonized thinking, you know. So you get all these different facets of colonized thinking. You know, you get the guys that run around and they all got good jobs. They drive a nice fancy car. They got a nice fancy house to live in, but yet they don't have $1 for one of the homeless people on the street, or yet they don't have a spare quarter for one of your neighbors that might be hurting. That's colonized thoughts. You know. This is a major threat to our way of life, because we're naturally in tune to helping, to being our brother's keeper. Always have been. You know, I read a book, Spirit Card. Have you ever read that with Diane Wilson? She was fantastic. You know, and she's busy. She was busy saying that in the middle 1800s, he was saying those Norwegian and Swedish immigrants, they would come down to the southwest Minnesota, and these preachers and ministers were trying to help the Indians, and they actually made a rule. They actually had the provost make a rule saying that Indians can't have giveaways anymore, right? Because they were so generous to a fault. You know, they wouldn't have anything, but then they'd give everything away. So we know this generation, we know this generosity from the get-go. It just gets beat out of us by this colonized thinking, you know? And the biggest threat to us is an Indian person that sits there and acts like, you sit there and act, you can say, oh, you gotta follow the rules, oh, we gotta do this. Well, just make it happen somehow. You know, just get over it. You can make it happen somehow if you're smart enough. You know, we've got one lady talking about not being able to take her kids on a field trip because they don't have insurance. Well, get them insurance. Find a way to make it happen. You know, people always, you know, I always think that people make the mistake of another colonized thought process is that they can sit there and look at our history books, where the only history books I ever read when in my formative years was one paragraph about an Indian, and there was a picture there of a lady stirring a pot and with a wooden spoon in her loincloth in front of her lodge. So is that all we did pre-contact? No, that's not all we did pre-contact. We had to go up there and hunt, fish, gather, make our clothes. All that stuff is work. You know, so if we can get a smart, credentialized Indian to correlate that into their teachings, then maybe that westernized way of thinking will work. You know, maybe it will, maybe it won't. I don't know. I'm not an expert in anything. The only thing I'm an expert in is making coffee. You know, if I could get word out on any issue, what would they be? Again, correlating with that colonization, which is a threat to our way of life. You know, that colonized process of thinking, whether it be part of the oppressed or part of the oppressor, you know, and the wild rice, the assault on the wild rice taking place now, when they're talking about the Polymet mine, when they're talking about those mines up in up towards Hibbing up that way. What they're talking about is that and the University of Minnesota has known this kind of thing, that they're going to be using the mines up there, right? And they've known this for 20 years, that the nitrates are going to increase, right? But with that 7-year gestation period, the nitrates are the 7-year gestation period of wild rice. We don't know if the wild rice is dead or if not, and we're not going to know until it's too late. You know, so from the northeast, it's getting assaulted. You know, from the northwest, Winona LeDuc talking about all the runoff from the farms. You know, so it's a northwest, northeast, and now we're getting it from the south. There's a new invasive species they're talking about in the 10-mile Dorset area chain of lakes. It's called the silver crayfish. Part of this life cycle of this crayfish is that it cuts reeds to lay its eggs in there. So it cuts them reeds underwater, it'll lay its eggs in there, and it'll go and eat the reed, right? Eat the top of the reed. What happens there is, like I said again, that 7-year gestation period, we're not going to know if that rice is gone or not. you know? So this whole assault on the wild rice is also can be correlated with the assault on our Indian kids, our Indian youth. Look at all these, look at all the colonized thinking on both sides, all the drugs, all the pressures from back and forth and behind and up and down. That's a threat to our life, you know. And I just wish there was a way that people can go back to those old teachings, you know, because it's been my experience in my life that that history always repeats itself. Always repeats itself. You can go ahead and do any kind of fact checking you want, right? And all the great big hoo-ah problems, you know, maybe some of those are a little bit different, but all these little here and there problems always repeats itself. My point would be to try to get along with each other. You know, I see it a lot with meetings in this Power Grounds area. A lot of these young Indian people will sit there and put personal problems in front of their business, right? I was just here yesterday when a young lady was saying, and she is in a very high position. We're talking extremely important position. I'm not going to mention who, what position, but she's busy sitting there saying, oh, I can't work with her. Oh, I can't work with her at all, because what is up with that? You know, because when you're dealing with problems, that old Herb Sam, he's got a good teaching. When you're dealing with problems, it's not about how other people act, it's how you act. You know, when you got a problem in your life and you're not acting to take care of that problem, it's not anybody else's problem. You can't play the blame game on anybody. Your problems, that's not on anybody else, that's on you. And if you can rise above somebody's little off-color comments, or if you can rise above somebody's little personal problems, and you got to rise above it, because it's not how other people act, it's how you act. And that's the most important thing, because when we're trying to work together, we're trying to get all these little groups, all these nice little places where they got this grant-based economy, all this funding around it, but we're still fighting amongst ourselves, and we're still being ugly to each other. That's not right. It's not right at all. So people got to learn how to quit playing the blame game, quit blaming their problems on everybody else, rise above it, show a little grace. People are especially, like I said, those guys work goddamn hard to get where they're at. But especially those educated ones. They're really graceless. They don't know any grace. They just bowl people over, and this is my way or the trailway. And that's not right. That's not the way Indians should act. That's not the way we need to be.